Another indicator of how critical auditory neural stimulation is that the inner ear is fully developed by about the 20th week of gestation. So typically developing fetuses spend 20 weeks with auditory neural stimulation. Now think about that. Can you see in utero? No. Can you breathe in utero? No. What can you do? Hear. We have to realize how critical that auditory stimulation is for neural development and neural growth. Look at our organic design. Is that an accident? So how do we work with that design? How do we respect that design and access and grow those auditory neural networks? And recognizing what tools do we have in this day and age. This isn't 1970, it's 2014. We have an amazing array of tools, none of which are perfect. So therefore, once we get to the brain, we have to enrich that auditory access. We have to enrich that access. Actually, all children benefit from enrichment of auditory conversations. But we have to particularly enrich a child with hearing loss because that technology does not allow the same distance hearing for capturing incidental knowledge. So we have to have even more conversations to give that brain more trials of data because that incidental, casual capturing of information isn't available to children with hearing loss. Their distance hearing, while better than ever before, is not the same as for a child with typical hearing. That distance hearing is also reduced if you have a unilateral hearing loss, if you have fluid in your ear, if you have wax impaction. All of that reduces your distance hearing, which reduces your ability to incidentally capture knowledge, language from your environment. Reduces your exposure. Reduces your information unless we intentionally enrich. More conversations, more read alouds, read, more singing. There's a lot of literature about singing that we should do in our classrooms, especially the early years, especially birth to 3. Because you will get children after they've already been birth to 3, right? All children. You know what happens to them? Any child birth to 3 sets their neurological stage for their entire life. 90% of brain growth is birth to 3. 90%. Now, not 90% of what a child knows, they learn birth to 3, but their brain growth, the infrastructure is set down. The infrastructure upon which we can scaffold higher level skills, birth to 3. What happened to that? Where has that child been in those, where has that child's brain been in those early years? What's happened to that brain in those early years? Studies show that the linguistic environment at home is the best predictor of that child's academic outcomes. The linguistic environment at home is the best predictor of that child's outcomes. That's why our birth to 3 coaching is all about parent guidance. How do the parents converse to the child, sing to the child, read with the child? That's the best predictor of how it's all going to turn out. That's it, right there. Not how wonderful we are once a week. Who comes to the classrooms depends on where their brain has been. And there'll be a variety of children in classrooms whose brains have been in very different places. whose brains in their early years have received lots of enrichment and exposure and conversation, children who have heard minimal conversation and not in English, children who've been listening for 4 years through middle ear fluid. Those are very different brains that will be in that classroom. Very different intrinsic capacity they're bringing to this learning environment, all different. Some children, you'll have an idea about where their brain has been. Other children, you'll have no idea. That's why we need classrooms from a universal design perspective, to make information available to all children, because we don't know where they've been. Even children whose brains have been beautifully enriched benefit from clear, well-designated signals, auditory input, and effective spoken communication. Everyone benefits. Some you know about and some you don't know about. That's why we want sound and access for everybody. I've walked into classrooms and they have a sound system and it's off. And I asked the teacher, why is it off? Well, the child who needed it isn't here. Really? No one else who, well, clearly the teacher is not intending to neglect the other children, but didn't understand anything about what auditory neural development means, about managing extrinsic signal to grow intrinsic capacity, about muddy in, muddy out. People don't know about this unless we talk about it, right? So her view was there was only that single child who needed a good signal. No one else did. Now, when we talked about it, she really got, wait a minute, you mean everyone? How many classes do you know that has a system that's sitting there with dust? Do you know of any? Yeah. Now, the teachers don't mean to neglect, right? They just don't get what a gift this is. They don't get that there are so many children who must, absolutely must, have this clear signal, and we don't know who they are. And there are some for whom this is a bonus. There are some kids who will learn no matter in spite of us, right? There are some kids that we can be as awful as possible, and they're still going to learn. This is a bonus for them. But there are even more for whom having a clear extrinsic signal means the difference, all the difference for them.